Movie star Blake Lively has filed a federal lawsuit claiming her It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni sexually harassed her, causing her severe emotional distress. The complaint made waves in Hollywood, and Baldoni is now mounting a counteroffensive, suing the New York Times for $250 million over a story they published about Lively's accusations. Joining us now to talk about this is Professor Stephanie Bond, who specializes in criminal justice, sexual assault and harassment, and discrimination. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Of course, happy to be here.
First, what is your takeaway, before we get to Baldoni's response, what is your takeaway of some of the accusations that are in Blake Lively's complaint here about what she experienced on the set and the sexual harassment that she says takes place?
I think that it is a classic example of workplace harassment that goes unchecked, particularly with the level of power that Baldoni had as in his role as not only lead actor, but also as a producer on the film, a director, and also a co-chairman and co-founder of the studio that was directly involved with the film. Whenever there aren't checks and balances on power, and one of those people in a lead role is a harasser, then we see that it becomes much larger more quickly.
A lot of people confuse sexual harassment as being about sex, but as you point out, it is most often about power. And the dynamics that are alleged to have taken place on the set are something that are not unusual in Hollywood, but as you point, also in the workplace. So for people who may have experienced something similar, what are things that they need to be doing first to prevent it, but also to make sure that they have a record so that if and when there are allegations like Baldoni is making, they're prepared?
Yeah, there is prevention and the prevention should never really come from the victims or potential victims of harassment. It should come from the workplace itself. So there are workplaces that have checks in place that make sure that harassment is not tolerated. A lot of the things that are alleged in the lawsuit that Lively is saying that there were no intimacy coordinators, for example, on set. That's a pretty standard practice in filmmaking, to have an intimacy coordinator whenever a sex scene or a nudity scene is filmed. So taking away that safeguard is a personal choice, or a choice that was made by Wayfarer Studios or by Baldoni himself. And so those things, it's always up to the workplace and to the people leading the workplace to ensure harassment doesn't happen, to shut it down when it happens, and to take complaints seriously, all of which did not happen in this case, it looks like, from the lawsuit. And then the other thing is, if you are a victim of harassment, I think just documenting every single event. You need specifics, you need to write it down, and you need to have detailed examples about those experiences, as well as formally lodging a complaint as soon as possible.
Unfortunately, those things are necessary and helpful to make a case if and when there ever has to be one. What do you make of Baldoni's response here? He's not going after her directly, but indirectly through the New York Times in this lawsuit that kind of puts some more headlines out there that are an alternative to what we were talking about before that.
I think that the response is in line with his approach from, if you've read the lawsuit, which I have several times, and you can see that there was an approach or an attempt via social media, that's what's alleged in the lawsuit, to try to create an image of himself as a feminist man who cares about these issues. That's certainly an image he's been cultivating for quite some time. And that's clear without reading the lawsuit. But in the lawsuit, it alleges that he hired a company to help smear Lively's name and image in the media through several different strategies, planting stories, planting Reddit posts, etc. If those things are true, I do not see a difference in then attacking via the media, right? Using the media as a tool to create a counter narrative seems in line with the strategy that is alleged in the lawsuit.
The media response is diversified, to say the least. There is the traditional media, the New York Times, who posted the initial story. There's also social media who are constantly commenting on the immediate updates that are happening here. And some people see this as a PR move for him or also for her. What do you make of that part of the public conversation we're having about what you call a traditional, very standard workplace harassment case?
I think the fact that the meeting that occurred last January is well documented, and that there were steps outlined for how to continue successfully filming shows me that pervasive harassment was happening, and that it was affecting not only Blake Lively but other people on the film, working on the film as well. Anytime you're setting up these basic rules and expectations, and that is well documented, saying things like no more showing nude images of women, including the producer's wife, to anyone on set, right? No more mention of previous pornography addictions. These are not appropriate workplace conversations. And therefore, anything we're seeing in the counter narrative or on social media doesn't really take into account, is trying to spin away from conversations around that.
All right. Well, something we'll keep an eye on as the lawsuits progress. Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Thank you.